What the hell is Julian? Nice. Take two. Well, today, because Julian has a case of the Hershey squirts, I'm here to show you the Suzuki S-Cross. Suzuki SX4 S-Cross, to be sure. Now, does this car have what it takes to impress? Let's find out. Today's episode is made possible by Sgcarmart Smart Loan. Sgcarmart Smart Loan is designed to save you time and money through a digitalized loan application via MyInfo for your used car purchase at below market interest rates. For a limited time only, get $500 cashback and a 6 months Kinto membership worth $1,200 when you apply for a loan today. To find out how much you can save when buying a used personal or private hire car, click on the link in the description below. Now let's go back to this car. The Suzuki S-Cross is priced at $170,000. The 1.4-litre turbocharged mild hybrid engine produces 127 brake horsepower and 235 Nm of torque. The 6-speed transmission brings the car from 0 to 100 km per hour in 12.7 seconds. The Suzuki S-Cross has a claimed fuel consumption of 17.5 km per litre. For more details on the Suzuki S-Cross or any other car, head on to sgcarmart.com to help you make the smart choice on your next car. Now, starting off by the front, you get a big S.
What did he say?
A big S on this chrome strip extending from the LED headlights. You get some very nice gloss black design, which is a nice departure from the usual boring slits. So this is something nicer to look at. Moving down here, you get a little diffuser as well as a front sensor to help with your active cruise control as well as your front collision avoidance. Now moving down the side of the car, you start to notice like this little panel gap, but it's not really a panel gap, but it seems like a panel gap because of the distance between these two, so I'm not sure about the design there. But the rest of the bonnet is very nice and wavy, almost reminds me of something, a brand that starts with P. Now this SX4 stands for Sport Crossover 4 Seasons, and that's why you get black cladding because it's meant to be a little sporty to help deal with the mud. And in this single trim, you get 17-inch rims. And then down here by the mirror, you get a 360 camera housing, which helps you get a nice view of the rest of the car. Now this is a crossover, so it won't be as huge, as hulking as say a proper SUV, but it still has a nice SUV look. Now moving on to the rear, you get the same treatment as the lights in front, so you get LED tail lights inside this clear glass plastic housing, and a nice chrome strip running across the rear, and a small S, on the boot. Now open up the boot to 440 litres worth of boot space, which is more than the Yaris Cross with 390 litres, but on par with the Atto 3, which is also 440 litres. Now will it pass the anti-trolley length test? Let's find out. Actually, not by a little bit. What you do get though is a variable. Now what you do get though is a variable boot floor. So you get two levels. So you can get a deeper boot, or if you want, a boot without a load lid. Now 440 litres isn't too bad, and it can of course swallow up the luggage and anti-trolley like this. And you can also get a parcel shelf. Now let's check out. Stay there! Now let's check out the inside. Now over by the rear of the Suzuki S-Cross, I am 1.75 meters tall, so I'm still getting some head space and some leg space in this crossover rear. Head space is as you expect of a crossover, but leg space I am getting a little bit more knee space, especially since the seats curve a little bit forward, so there is that little bit of extra space, which is really appreciated. But what's not appreciated, however, is there is no rear aircon or USB charging, so you're gonna have to rely on the aircon from the front. But to be fair, I can actually feel the aircon coming through, but no charging for the rear. Now if there's nobody sitting in the middle, you can pull out the middle armrest for little cup holders and an armrest. But if your bottle is like this, you can't actually fit it inside. But it's big enough and it fits inside the door bin. Now if there are people in the rear, however, you can move on to the middle. There is a transmission tunnel, even though it's a front wheel drive, but it's quite level, so my feet can rest. Even though they're at an angle, they are resting quite comfortably. However, you are going to eat into the sides of your passenger quite a little bit, so this is best left for short drives if you're stacking 5 people inside. Now let's check out the front. Now moving on to the driver's cockpit of the Suzuki S-Cross, you get your standard driver aid controls here, music controls here, It's a lot of plastic, but it's a very Suzuki kind of style. And I like these Suzuki analog dials. Like, you'll very rarely hear me say that I like analog dials, but Suzuki analog dials are honestly very good to look at. And there's a little LCD LED display in the middle, which is a nice touch. Over here you get a 9-inch infotainment system display, which is a very welcome refresh from the ones that you see inside the Swift Sport, the Jimny. This UI looks a lot better, a lot cleaner. You have a hybrid screen so you can see like the battery and the engine, how the power is flowing. You have your mileage history, so how your fuel economy has been for the past few drives. So things are really nice. And if you're on Apple CarPlay, you can get it wirelessly. Android Auto, unfortunately, you still have to plug in. Now moving down here, aircon vents in a nice gloss black trim, and a singular dedicated camera view button, which I really like because it's not like a few buttons and there are a few empty ones. This is a dedicated camera button that they've put here for you to make use of the 360 camera so that you can look at the car 360 to help you park. Although this view is a little bit weird, this spinning kind of reminds me of like Windows 95 screensaver. The resolution isn't the best, but I appreciate this function inside a car of this segment. Now moving down here, analog controls for your aircon, which is very welcome because you don't want to be looking down or making a guess with touchscreen controls. A little LCD display. Then down here, center nook, you have your little cubby space for your phone and just a singular USB port. There is no wireless charging in this car. Then a very normal gear shift, which to be honest, I think the design looks kind of aged, especially your Prindle. I think they could do a lot better. And then moving down here, two more cup holders, although they're not big enough to fit my tumbler, but at least I can put it in the center cubby space, which fits nicely. And then a manual gear shift. Now over on the right, you do have a little more buttons to control, like auto start, stop, lane keeping assist, front collision avoidance, and traction control if you so wish to do. But there's only one question left to answer. Does this car drive as well as it looks? One way to find out. So driving the Suzuki SX4 S-Cross, that's full name by the way, what does it feel like? Well, the moment you get inside, the moment you put the pedal to the metal for the first time, surprisingly sprightly. I was not expecting that of a Suzuki, really. But then, after all, it is powered by a mild hybrid system, so it does have that 48-volt mild starter generator assistance. And then it makes more sense when you think about its powertrain. Now, this is powered by a 1.4-litre turbocharged booster jet engine. Now, if that sounds familiar, that's because this is the exact same drivetrain that you find inside the Suzuki Swift Sport. And then, connect, ding, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like why this car can just it's quite a lot of fun. It's a category A 127 brake horsepower car with some 230 Newton meters of torque. On paper, its century sprint timing is some 12 plus seconds, 12.7 seconds, but it feels nothing like that. It kind of feels like a sub 8 second century sprint car, which is exactly what the Suzuki Swift Sport also felt like. The Suzuki Swift Sport's century sprint kind of felt like, on paper, felt like a lot slower than it actually was. Now this is of course quite a bit heavier and taller than the Suzuki Swift Sport, but you're really going to have a lot of fun with the engine of this car. Now this is supposed to be like an economical drive, a daily driver, and our colleague has gotten some 14 km per litre out of this, even in this size, which I think it's commendable, and it's not too far off from the 17 kilometers from Suzuki, the paper numbers. Now, with this amount of power, mated to a 6-speed automatic in this car, which is quite a welcome difference from the CVT before, and with its 6-speed autos, you get pedal shifters. So you do get a manual mode on the gear shift and then also pedal shifters, so you get to play with all that power. Now, in terms of handling, it does have a little bit of a bob and roll, so much so that the car even comes with an anti-sway bar in front. It does have a little bit of a bob and roll considering that it is a crossover, but I would say that it still gives me quite a little bit of confidence now. In theory, let's in theory, I'm not admitting to anything, in theory, you could throw this car around some slight bends, 80, 70, 80, and I think it still would give you quite a lot of confidence to do so. So this car in that sense is really surprising because it's just like your daily crossover that every brand has a crossover now, right? Because the crossover tends to sell well, but yet this is going to put a smile on a lot of people's faces. So this is really something to consider inside this car. 6-speed automatic pedal shifters with this engine, booster jet engine. It's quite a bit of fun. Now when it comes to safety systems, you're going to get things like blind spot monitor, you're going to get things front collision avoidance, active cruise control, but I have to caveat that it doesn't feel as well integrated as, say, the Toyota Safety Sense. So if you compare it to a Toyota system, I feel like the Toyota system looks and feels a bit more accessible in terms of its UI, which leads me to another point. Within the cabin, it's very plasticky, there's a lot of plastics. But if you're familiar with Suzuki, this is just par for the course, because what Suzuki likes to do is make things affordable, accessible, most importantly, functional. You can reach all your, say, your cruising buttons here, your media controls here, your core buttons here, you have your stocks, of course, and pedal shifters. Things are very functional. You're not going to get something that's super expensive. So things are made to be very functional. So that's what this car feels like. The things here are put here for a function and they perform it, and they're still going to be done for a good price, which is a very Suzuki thing. You find it inside the Ignis, you find it inside the Swift Sport, the Suzuki Swift. And that being said, even though it's filled with plastic, I like the Suzuki touch to it. If you look at Suzuki interiors, you're going to find plastic analog dials everywhere, but they're always so nice and pleasant to look at. Like, check out the one on the Jimny especially. I really love the ones inside the Jimny and the Swift Sport. Your plastic analog dials here, I have to say, truly, that they are a lot nicer to look at than most of your other plastic analog dials. And I really appreciate that about Suzuki cars. That's what they're good at doing. They're good at making small, affordable cars, and they do it well. So, is this Suzuki S-Cross a will buy, won't buy, or go try? Now, if you ask me, this car is a very close will buy, but more to the go try. Unfortunately, due to the pricing. If COE was lower, this car would be an insane amount of value. For a lower price, this car would be great price, great power, mild hybrid system, functionality of a crossover, and good looks. This car would be very, very, very instantly you'd see and like, that's the car to get. But at this price, currently, because of COE, yes, all the car prices are high, so you do take a little bit of a, it has a little bit more consideration, and that's why this car is a go try. And I think for people who are really, into their cars, the moment you get behind the wheel of this, your mind is gonna be made up instantly. This car has a lot to offer for the right people, and then it can also function very, very normally as a daily driver, as a more economical drive with its mild hybrid setup, and pleasant to the eyes. So that's why this car is a go try. So that's it. That's our review of the Suzuki SX4 S-Cross. What do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know down in the comments below, as well as any other car that you'd like to see us try out. Leave in the comments and we'll get to them. And if you've made it this far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube, and hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any of our future uploads. And also follow us on TikTok. We are at Sgcarmart. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Do you think we need a fan cooling thing? Take two. Well, I'm here to bring you the Suzuki S-Cross, and to be sure.